After the departure of Roy Hodgson, Crystal Palace have taken a new direction with Patrick Vieira. But is it a clever direction? How will they set up and how good could Crystal Palace be next season? Let's begin by looking at the Crystal Palace squad, and to do that we can use the sponsor for this video, OneFootball. There has been big changes with Crystal Palace over the last few months, and the big change is the manager. From Roy Hodgson, they've now gone to Patrick Vieira. That change of manager happened because Roy Hodgson's contract ended at the club, but there's also been many other contracts expired. In the defence, you've got Van Aanholt, Sacco, Cahill and Dan with their contracts expired. In the midfield, you've got Andros Townsend, who left the club. He's now signed on a free transfer to Everton. James McCarthy's contract also expired, as well as Connor Wickham as one of the forwards. So this is a massively changing Crystal Palace squad, which makes them a really interesting team to watch next season. It of course means that replacements are being signed. Mark Guehi is one of the centre-backs. He's joined from Chelsea after impressing last season, and we will talk about him in more depth, as well as Michael Elise, a really exciting winger which we will talk a lot about. As you can see on screen, OneFootball is great for looking at player profiles. So on Elise's profile here, we can see that he's 19, French, 189 centimeters tall, and he weighs 73 kilograms. When the season kicks off, you'll have access to all the Premier League stats you'll ever need. So download OneFootball on your phone, and all you need to do that is click the link in the description. So, the manager, Patrick Vieira, 45 years old now, a Premier League legend, and in terms of his managerial career, well, he's been at New York City in America. That was from 2016 to 2018, and at the club he had a 44% win rate. On the 11th of June 2018, he left New York City to join French club Nice. Similar to his time at New York City, he spent 2.5 years at the club playing 89 matches. He played 90 at New York City, so very similar, and this time he had a 39% win rate at the club. A quote from Vieira when he was at the club talks about the way he likes to play football as a manager. He said, "I'll try to impose a style of play with lots of 1-2s but play attacking football, all while having a compact defensive block. Taking risks to score as many goals as possible is something I am ready to do." So he's had 2 managerial jobs, spending 2.5 years at each club, but he's still got a lot to prove as a manager, and especially to English football fans. Now that is the risk that the Crystal Palace board are taking here. He's a manager with a lot to prove, but that may work in their favour because he's ambitious. He's got a lot to achieve as a manager. When you're appointing someone like Patrick Vieira, who's not been in the Premier League as a manager before, you're not quite sure what he's capable of, but that's the beauty of it. Instead of appointing a manager who you know won't take Palace to another level, a mid-table manager to steady the ship, sort of like Roy Hodgson, he did really well, he kept them in the league, but you never expected them to be in the top half or challenge for European football. That's the change here. That is the key aspect to this managerial appointment. They've gone in a different direction with a younger manager who might be capable of great things and surprise many. European football might be on the cards for Crystal Palace, not straight away this upcoming season, but getting Patrick Vieira as your manager is a long-term appointment where anything could happen. With many player contracts ending, it might be the perfect time for Vieira to come into the club. This is why I think the appointment is very clever. Instead of walking into a squad of players signed by the previous manager, a bunch of players that aren't really his, that don't suit the style of football he wants to play, it means that instead, with contracts expiring, he can sign players that he wants to suit his football and to refresh the squad right from the very start. You're then signing players that are ambitious with their whole career ahead of them. It changes the mentality of the squad, where Crystal Palace become a club with a squad of players that believe they can achieve anything and take the club to the next level. What Vieira has shown from his time as a manager is that he puts great faith in youth. When he was at Nice, we saw many younger players come into the team. He in fact gave 11 teenagers their debuts in the first team. Coming into Crystal Palace, he will definitely look to do something very similar, and there is potential for him to come into Crystal Palace and make it a great club for young players to develop. A great recent example of another club doing something similar is Brighton. The likes of Basuma, Lamptey, White, Mopai, Caicedo and Mwepu, who was just signed, they're all younger players that Brighton have signed who looked promising at their previous club and Brighton signed to develop them further. Palace are appointing a manager who is open to using younger players and had an established career in the Premier League, which is appealing for those younger players as they decide which club they want to join next. Already at Crystal Palace, you've got players like Eberici Eze, Nathan Ferguson, Tariq Mitchell, players who have got potential and can be good use to Vieira. As well as those, even in the few weeks he's been at the club, we've seen the arrival of 19-year-old Michael Elise and Mark Guehi, implying that in the transfer market, Palace will be targeting younger talent that can be developed at the club. Michael Elise in particular is a really interesting talent and a player that could have a brilliant future at the club. He signed for £8 million from Championship club Reading and scored 7 goals and assisted 11 times last season, showing brilliant flair by using his skills to dribble past players and move freely around the pitch. Expect to see Elise performing his tricks as Vieira instructs him to express himself. Last season he made 57 successful dribbles, proving that he has the ability to easily breeze past the opposition in 1v1 situations. Last season he predominantly played on the right wing but also attacking midfield. In either position though, he will roam to find spaces where he can cause the opposition problems. He will regularly receive the ball and look to take people on using clever and neat footwork to move around in tight spaces. His creativity is evident with his 11 assists last season. He also played 84 key passes and that was the second most in the Championship, and this further proves how there is end product after showing off his skills. I can see Vieira instructing Elise to be the player recovering the ball in deep positions near the halfway line, and this would help Palace in transition as they attempt to get the ball out of their half and nearer the opposition box. This is where Elise can be useful for Vieira's side as he'll be the player helping them to get the ball out of deep positions, either receiving the ball to run forward with it or by winning a foul, leading to Palace being able to push upfield. Another signing mentioned earlier, Mark Guehi, he signed from Chelsea for £18 million, a centre-back who was on loan at Swansea City last season and really impressed in the Championship. It's a top signing from Crystal Palace of a young defender targeted by many clubs who could have a great future in the Premier League. He put in a couple top performances in the playoffs for Swansea where you saw his strength come into play, and his good reading of the game too, which saw Barnsley striker Daryl Dike struggle to find space or have any opportunity to score for Barnsley in their playoff semi-final. He's not the only centre-back signing though. It also seems like Joachim Andersen is joining the club, and this could create a great partnership between two centre-backs who have both really impressed over the last season. Suddenly the back line at Crystal Palace, or at least the centre-back partnership, is transformed into one that has the ability to compete at a higher level, and Palace won't be stopping there in the transfer market. I'm sure there will be more players signed just around the corner. It's hard to try and predict what they could achieve this season when we don't really know the first 11 at the moment, but what we can say is that Palace finished 14th last season, so aiming for a mid-table finish would be sensible for them. However, it really gets interesting for Crystal Palace as you know there is more transfer business around the corner, and with those extra players coming into the team, they might be looking at a top half finish. So let me know, do you think Palace can finish in the top half? If you did enjoy this video, then please leave a like down below. It really helps the videos getting found, and for more Premier League insight and analysis, subscribe to Route 1.